Sometimes God's delays aren't denials, they're divine redirections. And the pain that you're feeling in the waiting, that's not punishment, that's preparation. In this video, we're going to be diving into one of the hardest seasons of our faith walk, when your desire and God's will don't seem to match. How do you tell the difference between surrendering to God's will or just giving up? We're going to explore what He might be teaching you during this season and how to trust His timing when it's all said and done. Hey there, I'm Kelli Nielsen, and after having survived and recovered from my own tremendous loss, I created a faith-based, neuroscience-proven process to help people recover from grief and loss. So let's dive into today's topic. Man, oh man, when you are hoping for more and God's will seems to be misaligned with your heart. This happens so much when you're walking through grief recovery and you can be disillusioned, right? Like you thought your life would go one way, you thought your healing would be so much faster, you thought so many things. But what is showing up in your real life seems to be at odds with God's word and the very nature of God, who you've known Him to be before this loss. So the first thing we want to talk about is how can we trust His timing when we're in that place, when it seems so hopeless, when we feel so broken by the delay, when our healing, when our vindication, when our answer seems to be taking forever. How can we trust God's timing in that place? There was a point when I was wrestling with this, when I thought that God was either cruel or just absent. Like I thought that He was asleep at the switch. I thought that He had left me and abandoned me. It seemed like He was doing nothing, that He was just sitting on the sidelines and watching me suffer and be in pain. But I realized that He wasn't absent. He wasn't neglectful. He just was operating on a different timeline. He was just orchestrating a bigger work than I could see in that moment. That's what pain tends to do to us. When we're in the pain of grief specifically, pain can blind our eyes to the bigger picture. We get so narrowly focused, so acutely focused on our pain and the loss that we can literally be blinded to what's going around us. But God is always in view of the whole picture. He's always in view of the complete timeline from end to beginning. Okay. So we have to remember that when we're in this acute pain, it most likely is that we're just not seeing the entire picture. So part of the problem when we're in that place is that we feel the need to control things. We want to control how fast things move. We want answers. We want all these things, and it's just not happening fast enough. Our brains crave that. Actually, neuroscience shows us our brains crave completion of patterns. Our brain is always looking to close the loop. Our brain is always trying to figure out 1 + 1 = 2, right? So our brain is always trying to make things make sense. And unless things make sense, we're very uncomfortable. Our brain is searching for answers. So it's very natural that you would feel this discontent, this wrestling in your heart and mind, in your body, because your brain is trying to make sense of things. Neurologically speaking, that is what our brain is wired for. So when we're looking for answers and we don't have answers, it creates stress, it creates cortisol, it creates all these biological things that happen in our body. Part of learning to trust God's timeline is understanding that it is biologically good for us to let go of control, to let go of what logic seems to demand. When we can surrender that and let go of that, it's going to release positive chemicals, positive hormones in our mind, and literally help our system to calm down. And ironically, when we help our system to calm down, that is the very state that our brain is able to perceive the additional answers and the additional solutions. Okay. So trusting God's timeline means that we're not depending on our own strength. We're not trying to figure it out with our own mind, that we are leaning on faith. And faith begins where logic ends, right? Faith is the substance of things not seen, right? Things hoped for, but not yet seen. So our faith starts where our control ends. And so when we lean on our faith, it actually helps us to rewire our mind and learn to operate from a peaceful state of being, even when answers aren't there, even when our brain can't make sense of it. So leaning into and trusting God's timing in this season, if you can reframe it to understand that the work that's being done in this season is you're literally rewiring your brain. You're rewiring your brain to learn to be calm and trust and have faith when the answers aren't there. There's a really supernatural holy work that is being done in you when you're in this contentious place of grappling with your faith and trying to line up the fact that your life doesn't look like God's word or his character, right? There's something that gets formed in you when you learn to lean into the faith of who you know God to be, even though it doesn't line up with logic. And if you can look at it that way, it actually becomes a very sacred season in your life. If we can learn to not despise the season of healing, but see it as a sacred holy work at a time of restoration and recalibration, then it's much easier for us to not try to rush it or hurry it along and to cooperate fully with the work that God is doing in us to eventually do through us. So I thought that God was late to the show. I thought he was late to the party. I just wanted him to heal me, fix me, make me feel better. And I realized eventually that he was doing a greater work, that he was right on time for creating the version of me that I now am today. He wasn't just interested in making it stop hurting. He was interested in forming me into the person that he needed me to be. So when we can look at this season again with that mindset, it totally changes the way we approach this season of grappling with God, okay? So if you're in this place though, and I know it is much easier said than done, and I know that it's messy and it's gut-wrenching and it's confusing, all that stuff. So if you're in this place and you're wanting some practical tools and help for that, check out the link in the descriptions for more help with that. But let's jump on to the next point, okay? So we've recognized this is a season where we need to surrender. We need to lean into this work that God is doing. But what's the difference between surrendering and just being passive or just giving up, right? A lot of people think, well, I have this anger or I have this frustration or I have this confusion and I'm just going to surrender it to God. So that means I'm going to sit and just wait for God to do his thing, right? I'm just going to sit here because I've surrendered to God. So I'm putting it in God's hands. So that means God's going to do it. My friend, that is not what surrender looks like. That is what giving up looks like. That's what quitting looks like. And I know it can be kind of a slippery slope. So that's why we want to unpack this a little bit. Giving up says, well, I can't figure it out, so I give up, right? Like, I don't see the way that this is all going to work out, so I give up. Surrendering says, I don't see the way, but I trust, I lean into you that you're providing the way. I know that there's a way forward because I trust in you. And so even though I don't see the way, I continue to move forward in a place of surrender so that you can show me the way. You hear the difference? Giving up says, I'm not moving forward because I don't see the way. And surrendering says, I continue to move forward, trusting that you're showing me the way as I go. That is a huge, huge difference. And giving up and just sitting doesn't lead to peace, but that heart of surrender and continuing to move in the midst of a surrendered heart, meaning I've surrendered my need for control. I've surrendered my demand for answers. I have surrendered the need to have this logically make sense. But God, I'm trusting in your nature. I'm trusting in who you say you are and who I know you to be. And I am moving forward anyways. And I am also trusting that you are guiding my steps as I move forward and that you are leading me to where I need to be and creating me to be the person that you've designed me to be. That is what surrender looks like. Again, let's bring it back to neuroscience because every time I talk, we're always going to be talking about faith and neuroscience. So again, when you get to that place of giving up and you just give up, chemically speaking, that's a depressive thought. Your brain is going to release depressive, give up chemicals and hormones, and even the biology in your brain is going to lean more depressive, okay? But when you surrender, to move forward from a place of surrender, then your body releases calming neurotransmitters. Your body is going to release different chemicals. So even your biology can tell the difference between hopelessness and holy surrender, okay? Your body and your brain sends out different signals based on the posture that you're taking and based on whether you're taking any action or you're just sitting in a place of hopeless inaction. So hear me, like action is such an important component of this walk. It's called a walk for a reason. It's not called a sit, it's called a walk, right? We are meant to walk this out and every day take steps in a place of surrender so that we can get to where we are called to be. Okay. So surrendering means that I stopped demanding that God explain himself to me, and I ask that he start revealing himself to me. Okay. So I was very much demanding answers from God. Like, God, where were you? How could you let this happen? Explain this to me. Explain yourself to me. That is not a place where answers come. God does not have to explain himself to us, right? But when I started to shift my questions and say, God, help me to see you in this. God, where were you in this? Show me where you were in this tragedy, and show me where you are right now in the midst of my pain. And most importantly, God, show me where you're leading me. When we start to ask him to show us where he is in the midst of our confusion, in the midst of our pain, then he will reveal himself to us. We can find him in those places. And that is actually the path forward. And as I mentioned, this is not in vain. Please hear me when I say this. Your pain, your suffering, whatever you're walking through, it is not in vain. It is not without purpose. I contend, and I have experienced, that it's actually a highly redemptive, holy purpose. So let's lean into this time. Let's let it do its work, because as I mentioned, God is using this time and this hopefully closer intimacy with him and this deeper trust in him and this learning how to be led by him is producing in you a new person that can operate in different ways, can function at higher levels, can serve at a higher level, can love at a higher level. There's so much fruit that comes out of this season, but it doesn't make the season any easier. But my encouragement to you is lean into the work, because there's a lot of fruit that's being produced right now. Okay, so we know that we have to trust his timing, even though it feels delayed. We know that we need to surrender and not give up. We looked at the difference at that. So let's talk about what might God be trying to teach me? What is he potentially using all of this for? What would he be using this time of pain and disappointment for? I touched on it just briefly. One of the things he might be using it for is for you to draw closer to him. Okay. And let me clarify, God did not cause this bad thing to happen so that you would draw closer to him. He's a good God. He's a father of the giver of good gifts, right? But we live in a fallen world where people have free will and free choice, and bad things happen, right? So God will use any and everything to draw us to him. And so because our attention is here, he's going to absolutely use this season to cultivate in you a deeper intimacy with him. He's going to use this season to cultivate in you perseverance and trust and a deeper level of connection with him. But I want to be completely clear when I say, like, God did not cause this to happen so that he could do this work. But since this has happened, he wants to redeem it and cause you to be even better because of it. Because the word said, whatever the enemy means for harm, God means for good, right? And no weapon formed against you shall prosper. So God is going to take what the enemy meant to destroy you, and he's literally, if you'll cooperate with him, going to use this to make you better than you were before it ever happened. That is the work that he's doing in this place. So he is doing this rewiring work as we learn moment by moment to lay down our logic, to lay down our need for control, and to lean into him and to trust him. Like I said, that rewiring is happening in your mind. You learn to carry peace for longer and longer periods of time. You actually are holding the capacity for carrying his goodness in spite of circumstances, right? In spite of facts that seem to be contrary. So this is the work that's being done. And when you learn to do this well, when you build this capacity and these muscles, the rest of your life is going to look different. That's why I so often call grief a brain injury, because it really is. It causes damage to your brain. And the good news is, though, it can heal. And so in this waiting season and cooperating with God, he can actually heal your mind and not just repair it to what it was before the loss, but he can restore it and redeem it to be better than it was before then. Let's look at a couple of scriptures that just confirm and validate this. James 1, 2, and 4. When trouble comes, consider it joy, because your faith produces endurance, right? In trouble, when you have faith, you're producing endurance. And Romans 5, 3 Suffering produces perseverance, character, and character hope. And then lastly, Psalms 24:17, wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart. Waiting is not weak. It's a strength training for your soul. When we learn to sit in that place of waiting, that place of discontentment, that place where our life does not match scripture, and we learn to sit in that place, we are doing conditioning and strength training for our soul. We are learning to walk in a bigger, more intentional way. And that is a powerful place to be. And as I've mentioned before and in other videos, faith isn't truly tested until we're in the storm. I thought I had an impenetrable faith. I thought I had an impeccable faith until these losses happened. And then I realized I actually didn't have the faith that I thought I had. But through these losses and leaning into God, what He created was a solid faith. He created the opportunity for me to develop a solid faith where I'm not as swayed by storms, where I trust Him. I've learned not to question Him, not to get sidetracked by all the things that can take us out of the game. And that is what is being produced in this season. Okay? So none of this time is wasted. As I mentioned, I know it may not feel like it now, and I know you may despise this season and you just want to hurry through it. And I'm a fan of that too. We want to be as efficient with this season as possible. We definitely don't want to prolong it any longer than necessary. At the same time, we want to reap everything that God has for us in the midst of this incredibly tough season. We don't want to skip steps. We don't want to take shortcuts. We want everything that He has for us to be produced in us and through us, so that when we go on to our next season, we are fully equipped and ready to carry whatever mantle He gives us. Because I am a firm believer that your past doesn't define you, it prepares you. I'm a believer that everything you faced up before today is a preparation for what God has for you tomorrow. So lean into that work with me, right? Lean in with God and let Him form in you all the things that He's trying to form in you so that you can carry what He has for you in the future, which I believe are good things, are big things, are impactful things. I hope this video blesses you. Like I said, if you want some personal help to walk this out and practical tools, what this looks like in your day-to-day life, check out the link in the description below, but otherwise check out this next video.